This is the Build Wealth Canada podcast, session number 16.
Welcome to the Build Wealth Canada podcast, where it's all about becoming debt-free, accelerating your wealth, and taking control of your money. Now, here's your host, Cornell Schreiber.
Hey, it's Cornell and welcome to the Build Wealth Canada podcast. Today, I'm excited to have one of the top personal finance bloggers in Canada on the show. Tom Drake is the president of Drake Media Inc. and the owner and manager of dozens of personal finance sites, including his primary site, Canadian Finance Blog, where you can learn more about the best credit cards in Canada as well as other personal finance best practices. He has been called the godfather of personal finance sites here in Canada, and today I'm thrilled to have him on the show to talk all about the best practices when it comes to using credit cards, as well as the top credit cards that he recommends in 2015. For the list and links to the top credit cards, as well as the show notes, go to buildwealthcanada.ca/16, so just the number 16. And now let's get into the show. So, Tom, what I thought we would do is start off by just talking about some of the best practices when it comes to credit card use. And then I thought after that, we can answer some of the top questions that Canadians have when it comes to credit cards. So things like how to redeem the different credit card perks that they might have, or choosing a paid versus a free credit card, things like that. And then after that, I thought it would be a good idea to maybe you can share with us what you found in terms of the best credit cards in Canada. So I know you have your own blog, you research this subject quite a bit, you look at all sort of the newest cards, what are the advantages, what are the disadvantages. So I thought you could take us all through sort of what you found in your research, so that we have kind of a list of cards that we should at least consider if we're taking that route. Does that sound good?
Yeah, sounds great.
Awesome. So just to start us off, what are some of the best practices when it comes to credit card use?
Well, the first thing to keep in mind with credit cards is not every person's really meant to have a credit card. There's some people that just the psychology of it, they're not going to handle it well. Like, you need to be able to certainly pay off your credit card every month. If you're not, the interest you pay it outweighs any of the perks or rewards we'll talk about. And another best practice is certainly to use it to monitor your spending. If you're going to pay it off every month, you need to be able to know that you're not spending more than you can afford to pay off. So you can't just treat it like free money and then wait till the end of the month and then find out that you can't pay it off. Another good best practice is related to just the security of what you're being charged for. So review your statement every month. One, it helps you just know your own spending, but also you might find out that maybe something went on there that you didn't authorize, and you can contact your bank then. But really, if you can't handle those certain steps, then having a credit card like this probably isn't for you.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. For sure. Yeah, I find it's a great tool to use, but you have to use it carefully, right? Like you can, like a hammer, right? You can use it to build a house or make something great out of using it, or you can use it to really hurt yourself if you don't know how to, how to use it, right? So, for sure, I agree 100%. So speaking of that, can you talk a little bit about the advantages and disadvantages of having a credit card?
Well, I pretty much think there's more advantages than not. Obviously, there's the rewards. It could be a travel reward or cash back. A lot of people like the air miles, but it's not just the rewards. There's also stuff that a lot of people almost don't realize they have on some of their cards, like the extended warranties, or travel insurance. I think a lot of that goes probably underutilized. For sure. Where they have this credit card, but they don't really think about all these extra sort of perks that are being attached to it. Another advantage of a credit card, I think, is that it pretty much has more protection than a bank card. If your card gets stolen and somebody uses it, or they've swiped the information at least and uses it, with a credit card, it's very easy to get the charge reversed. They'll take it off. They're done. With the bank, sometimes you have to kind of go back and forth with them a bit with a regular bank card to get your money back, because they've taken money out of your checking account. Mm-hmm. So there's a feeling among a lot of people that credit cards aren't secure, but I consider them probably the most secure way. I'd rather lose my credit card and have that risk than lose my bank card and certainly lose cash.
For sure, yeah. Like I carry very, very little cash on me at all times, and so if something was to happen and you get mugged or whatever the case, hopefully you don't, but if someone wants to take your credit card, fine, take my credit card, have fun. And they're just increasing their chances of getting caught, basically, right? By
Exactly.
using it. So so yeah, much preferred for sure. Yeah. No, that's.
For
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
for disadvantages though, it goes back to that responsible use,
Right.
and your analogy of the hammer is great because yeah, it is a tool. You can't you still have to use it properly.
Right.
So certainly, like I said, you got to be able to pay it off, and if you have multiple cards, you got to kind of keep track of that too. You can lose track when the more complicated you make it with multiple cards.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, what's worked well for me is I like to have kind of the aero plan covered off and the aero miles as well. So I'll have one credit card that I use and it has the aero plan, and then the other one has the air miles, because some stores or whatever, like gas stations, right, they'll accept air miles, whereas others have aero plans. So this way you're not really missing out on the rewards, no matter which one you go through, you can use it. So I find kind of that's like that, and because I have a business, it's nice to have a separate card for that. But I find that's kind of those are the two main advantages of having multiple cards, I find, as opposed to, definitely not having like 8 different cards with 8 different rewards things. And then and it's just the time you spend managing those every month would be so annoying, just to make sure that they're paid off and reviewing the statement for each one and downloading the statement. I mean, it's just such a hassle.
Yeah, and when you have, say, the 8 credit cards, you're not sort of piling all your rewards into one place. Like to have a couple, you can actually build those up.
Exactly.
But say with an Air Miles card, if you're not putting a lot of focus into it, well, you're never going to get much out of it. You're not going to get a trip. You're going to get a couple free movies or something, because you're not sort of maximizing the use there.
Exactly. And then Tom, some you mentioned this already. Some credit cards have different perks, like the extended warranty on purchases. Some have travel insurance. How do you take advantage of these benefits, and is it a hassle to claim them? Is it easy to claim them, or is this just kind of a marketing gimmick, by the credit card companies, or is this actually a legitimate benefit that we should really be using?
They're very legit. Normally, the biggest catch is that you have to pay in full. So you can't just put half of the purchase down on your credit card and pay the rest in cash or something. So if you're buying an item and you just pay with it full on the credit card, and if that credit card has an extended warranty, say, it's immediate. Like if they've added a year on top of the regular warranty, it's immediate. You've got that extended warranty on that item. Sometimes if it's, I believe, 5 years or more of the regular warranty on that product, then they want you to register for that additional year through the credit card company.
Okay.
But for shorter term things, you get that year just for the fact that you purchased it fully on that card.
Okay.
Same with what was the other one you mentioned? The travel insurance and medical insurance related to that. With those, similar idea. In full, you just purchase the trip on that credit card. So you can't use a different credit card and then say, oh, well, I've got this, insurance on the other card. I want to use that now because I need it. Or
I have double the insurance because I have insurance on each card, and now I use both of them, so I get
it's whatever is fully spent on that one card. Gotcha. So if like I've got a card that does the extended warranty really well, and I've got a card that's got a bunch of travel benefits. So I weigh that when I'm making those kind of purchases. I always use my travel card to book travel, and I always make my major purchases with the one with the extended warranty. So knowing all the perks you have, which sometimes isn't much more than fine print in the booklet you get with the credit card. But in all those cases, they basically, you're signed up for those perks as soon as you use the card. Another one we didn't mention is the rental collision insurance.
Oh, right.
So if you rent a card on a card that has that kind of program, you don't have to take their extra fees when you're renting a car. The credit card will cover you up to the full loss of the vehicle.
That's a great one.
Just by using the right cards at the right time when you're actually renting that car.
For sure.
And some of those same cards will even give you discounts on the rentals in the first place too.
That's great. Yeah. And yeah, I've done a fair bit of travel in the US and doing the car rentals. And yeah, I mean, the insurance can be pretty pricey. And then you kind of get into that whole debate. Well, should I go through my own insurance company? Do they offer that? Should I get it through the car, like where they're renting it? Or should I get it through, let's say, Expedia, because that's where I actually booked it. So there's all these different sort of options for this. But so you're saying you could actually bypass all of that because you may be fully covered by your credit card anyway. So you're saving a lot of money and it's much more convenient.
Yeah, that's exactly what I do. I couldn't tell you which of the other options is better because I just use the right credit card in the first place.
You just use the free option, which tends to take care of everything. So yeah.
And with those extended warranties, you get like say you're in a store and they're trying to sell you an extended warranty. First of all, you're paying for it,
right?
Where your credit card could do it for free. But also, if you're trying to claim it, those in-store extended warranties have a lot more catches, like little things that make it unclaimable, like this is wear and tear, it's not broken,
right. Mm-hmm.
and things like that, where the credit cards will be a lot more free with that, even to the point of if it's stolen within 90 days or something like that. A lot of credit cards will guarantee that as well. So there's a lot of options that are a lot easier to claim when the time comes, without a bunch of hidden catches.
Interesting. So let's say, let's go through a scenario. So let's say you have a car that has this extended warranty. So I buy, I don't know, a laptop, let's say. And then that laptop has a 1-year warranty, I guess, with the store, the manufacturer, whatever. So if something was to happen within that first year, would you recommend just going through the manufacturer or the store? Or would you actually go right to your credit card company? What would be easier?
You have to go with the store.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah, it truly is an additional year.
Oh, okay.
So the credit card won't pick up that until the other one's passed. So in the case of a 1 year, you'd have to deal with the store during that time. In the second year, though, it's wholly on the card.
Okay. So let's say that happens then. We're in year 2. My original warranty has now expired. I have the warranty on the card, which I got automatically just because I used that card. Right? I didn't have to sign up for it or anything like that. It's automatic, or register the product. It's automatically covered. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay. And sorry. Go ahead.
When it comes time to claim that, you'd have to go through some paperwork with them for sure. But
right.
Their claim process seems a lot more straightforward than some of the other places.
Gotcha. So would the process be then that you just call the generic number for that credit card, like the number on the back of your card, let's say, and then you call that and tell them what's happened, and they start you on this process?
The number on the back of the card would be a good place to start. Inside the booklet that you get with your credit card, there could be a different number.
Okay.
But ultimately, if you called the number on the back of the card, I'm sure they'd get you to the right place.
Gotcha.
But within the details that you get when you get a card, they'll sometimes list different phone numbers and all the details about how many years or months or whatever the case is on these different perks.
Okay, so then I guess they'll probably ask you to send them the receipt or something like that, so that you have proof that when you purchased it. And then do they want you to send the product back usually, like to them? How does that work? Do you not have to pay for shipping to ship the product to the company?
I'm actually not sure of that. I haven't had to actually ship a product in the past.
Okay,
but I would guess they probably, and I'm just guessing that they probably don't really care, because I've had to claim before on a stolen item.
Okay,
or possibly lost, but
right.
Within 90 days, my card covered that.
Okay.
And obviously, there's nothing to ship in that case, and they had no issue with that. So,
gotcha.
I'm not sure when it truly comes to just a damage kind of warranty issue, but.
Okay, sounds. So I guess the sort of as an action point, I guess the best thing to do would be, if you already have a credit card that maybe has some of these, might be a good idea to give them a call and just ask them what is the process for doing this, just so that you're familiar with how it works and with all the details and the fine print.
Exactly.
Right, and then if you're considering switching to a different credit card because maybe it has better perks, then maybe call them ahead of time as well, and get them to explain these perks, get them to explain the process. And then, now that you've spoken to your existing credit card company and this new one you're considering, now you can sort of compare apples to apples. You can say, okay, this one's better with this one's better with that. And then you can decide, do I want to stay with my existing one, or do I want to go through the hassle of switching? Is it worth it? Or do I want to just have this extra credit card now? And is it worth sort of the pain of having to manage now multiple cards? So, yeah. So no, that's a good hit. Yeah, because I guess it would be different for every single company, and each one has their own sort of fine print and their different procedures. Maybe one wants you to ship back the item to them as proof that it actually is broken, as opposed to you just want a second item, right? So I could see how, yeah. So I can see at the same time that you have all the right documentation, right? So make sure you have the receipt and all of that. So I assume with travel insurance, same kind of thing. And then with the car rental as well, I think that would be a really key thing, because that can be a pretty large amount. And I mean, if you're a Canadian and you're going to the US, you really do want to make sure that if you're renting a car, it's insured. So I definitely wouldn't assume that, on their marketing material for the credit card, there was a bullet point that said it includes car collision insurance. So I'm just going to assume I'm all covered and everything is great. You should probably, because the stakes are so high, like if you actually hit someone, you could get sued. It could be a really big deal. So you probably want to call the insurance company, make sure you really understand sort of the limitations, right? Because maybe they cover it, but maybe there's a big deductible or something like that. So it's worth kind of doing your due diligence ahead of time.
I actually had a reader of my blog not too long ago email me. They were kind of annoyed at their credit card company because they got in just a small accident, and they weren't getting covered. But it turns out the card they have never had the rental collision insurance on it. So it's not just how much, but don't assume that just because you have a credit card that it covers these things.
Right.
Each card's different. They all have their own fine print. You got to go through that big book that probably most people don't read when they get the credit card.
Exactly.
And because this person just assumed that they were covered, and they weren't. The coverage didn't exist on that card. So unfortunately, they couldn't do anything in that case.
Yeah, but fortunately, it was just a small fender bender, right? If it was like a catastrophic collision where they completely wrecked the car maybe actually hurt the other driver, and now the other driver is suing them. I mean, now they're talking about mortgaging their house probably because now they have these legal bills to pay, and maybe they were negligent and now they're liable. So it's as boring as that book is to read. It's probably a good, when this, like, I get it if you're buying a $20 item at Best Buy and, fine, the warranties didn't cover it. Okay, you can live with that. But if we're talking about things like car insurance in a foreign land, you probably want to read that fine print, probably want to even call a company just to make sure you understand what you read in the booklet, to make sure you've got your bases covered, just because, I mean, you're just trying to secure yourself from catastrophic losses, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's great. No, thanks for those tips. So on to my next questions. Many credit cards have different options. So some of them are completely free, while other cards have kind of a premium card option, right? Where you now pay an annual fee to have this sort of platinum card or whatever the fancy name is. And now you're paying, but a lot of times when you're paying for a card, you might get better perks as well. So you'll get Aeroplan points quicker or air miles faster, things like that. Is there an easy way that you know of determining whether it's worth getting this paid option or whether you should just stick with the free option?
It's easier with some than with others. With something like a Aeroplan or Air Miles, it's hard always to put a dollar figure on those rewards, right? Because it depends on what you're using them for and all that. You can certainly look at somewhere you get like a gold Air Miles from BMO, I believe. They give a % off when you're booking with those Air Miles, so you could actually look at that and say, "Oh, I'm saving this % from my trip," and that would mean something. The easier ones is if it's a cashback card or travel that's equivalent to cash, because then you can actually look at it. You can say, "Oh, I'm getting 2% back on my credit card." Then you can do that math of, well, how much do I spend in a year?
Right.
Calculate that 2% and actually figure out, is it more than the annual fee? If the annual fee is $100, $120, but you're saving $200, $500, it's right. You can see that connection easier. but yeah, with some of the points programs like Air Miles and Aeroplan,
Hmm.
it gets a little murkier as to whether it's a good deal.
For sure.
Another thing with any of these annual fees is you have to pretty much do all your spending on your credit card. If you're going to be a mostly cash or mostly bank card kind of spender, the annual fees will never make sense. You
Right.
pretty much have to put every dollar that you can
Hmm.
onto your credit card and then pay the credit card off at the end of the month
Hmm.
with your checking account at that point.
Yeah, one strategy that I've heard a lot of people use is you have if you have a side business, let's say, then to put all your business expenses, have a kind of a dedicated card for that. I know one of my friends does that. He has his own web development company, and he has his sort of designated business card, and he has contractors which will pay with a credit card, for example. So he's basically paying workers that work on his business, and he's earning air miles off that. And these guys are, they're building websites all the time, so they're constantly charging him, and he just accumulates so much. It's just wild. So for sure, if you're a business, if you have a side business, or maybe you're an entrepreneur and you do this full time, definitely worth considering, I think, because when you do the math, it might actually end up in your favor quite a bit. But like you said, if you're not using them a lot, then it's hard to sort of reach that threshold where, okay, the card has now been paid for with all these benefits that I've been getting. I guess too, like with the perks as well, right? Like if you're let's say if you travel maybe 4 times a year, let's say to Florida or to the US, and there's this premium card that has really good car coverage, let's say, and then this other fee card does not have that, then yeah, maybe it's worth paying that, $100 a year for that credit card, because you'll spend way more than that in car insurance throughout the year. So I guess, yeah, you just kind of have to sit down with a boring spreadsheet and just kind of crunch the numbers and see if it's worth it, and decide from there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And of course, you have to know what you've been spending in the past year. Like,
exactly.
I believe you use Mint, and
Yeah.
I've used it too. And just being able to see that kind of spending, because then if the card has different tiers of spending, like you might get a higher percent on groceries bought through that card than you would at, say, a drugstore.
Mm-hmm.
And so something like Mint is really great for that, because then you can even break that down.
Exactly.
When it's not a flat rate on the card.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, especially with the tiers like you mentioned, there are definitely the different tiers, and yeah, if you're in the slowest one, it's probably not worth your while a lot of the time. So, yeah, no, that's great. That's really good. That's great advice. Now, what if you can't pay off your entire credit card balance at the end of the month? We all know that we should be doing that, but let's say, I don't know, you lost your job that month and now money's tight, or you lost your job and then your roof also caved in that month and things are looking pretty rough from the cash flow perspective, and maybe you didn't have enough of an emergency fund to weather that big of a storm. And so now you're looking, okay, well, I have this credit card I could be using, and then I'm paying 18%, let's say, which is ridiculously high. What are some options that you'd recommend if you actually need to borrow money instead of sort of defaulting to using a credit card?
Yeah, if you do get in that situation, like obviously we said you want to be paying it off in full every month, but if this does happen, it's going to happen to some people for sure. You obviously you want to make sure you still pay your credit card because you don't want to wreck your credit rating. But you don't necessarily want to do it at the 18 to 20% kind of rates. If you have a home equity line of credit or a secured loan, they'll give you really good rates. But even an unsecured loan, even if you have to go in the bank and get it that month kind of thing, any of those are a better option, interest rate wise at least, than paying the credit card rate. And again, you just want to be paying off your credit card anyways, because you don't want to wreck your credit score over that. I wouldn't go and get a payday loan because the percentage is actually worse.
Right.
So
right.
You'd be better off just making your minimum credit card payment instead of paying it off in full than to get to the point of a payday loan for that.
Sure. And maybe for some of the our listeners who are just getting into personal finance, can you define what a secured loan is versus an unsecured loan?
Well, secured loan is secured against an asset. So it could be against a car if you have a car loan. It can also be against your investments. It's basically they've got something that they get a piece of if you weren't paying off your loan in full, and because of that, they'll give you a better rate. You might get 3 or 4% instead of 10 or higher. So you just get a better rate because they're taking on a lot less risk. They've got something that they can pull back from you if you all of a sudden just stop paying all your debts.
Exactly, yeah. Versus an unsecured loan, which is kind of basically like a credit card, right? They're lending you the money; it's not really secured against anything. So yeah, for sure. I myself I use a home equity line of credit. I find that's I don't actually use it. I have one in case something goes really bad. Have an emergency fund as well, but have that home equity line of credit just to be on the safe side. I have yet to use it. But it doesn't hurt to have it there just in case something really happens bad, and the rate's really good. It's like prime plus one for that. Whereas if you compare that to a credit card paying 18% or more, it's a pretty drastic difference. So yeah, for sure, for our listeners who are kind of new to this whole thing, well, I mean, ideally you shouldn't be taking out getting debt into debt in the first place, right? I mean, that's kind of the given, right? You just shouldn't do that. But like I said, you lost your job, and also your car exploded, and also your roof caved in, and you just don't have that much in your emergency fund to take care of all of those, then for sure, maybe consider a home equity line of credit or a secured loan to try to get as much of just so that you can kind of weather that storm for a bit until you get back on track.
Yeah, at least it's not a crippling kind of rate, like say a credit card. If you've lost your job, obviously, and you've emptied out your emergency fund.
Yeah.
So something like the home equity line of credit is a good sort of next line of defense for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And it's just nice to have that, knowing that if something goes bad, you'll be okay from the cash flow perspective until the next check comes in. Definitely. Yeah, no, that's great. And also, one other interesting thing that I've kind of ran across is there's actually some people that will recommend saving up for an emergency fund versus paying off their credit card debt. Can you speak to that a little bit about what your thoughts on that strategy are?
Yeah, if you ask different people, you're going to get a different answer on this. And I think it comes down to that kind of money psychology of what you're more comfortable with. Some people just need to have that emergency fund because it makes them feel more secure. They're ready for the next problem kind of thing. Mm-hmm. I'm more on the other side. I look at credit card debt especially, but even any debt. By paying it off, you basically get a higher return than you're going to get on your emergency fund that's making next to nothing nowadays in savings. So I prefer paying off debt. If it's credit card debt, all the more for sure. But really any debt, you're going to do better net worth wise by paying off the credit card debt or any debt than putting it away in an emergency fund. And in the case an emergency comes, as much as you don't want to use it, you still got maybe a line of credit or a credit card that you could use a bit at the time because you've already paid it down. So I'd always lean towards paying it down and then paying it off over the emergency fund. Emergency fund's sort of the next step after debt in my mind.
Right. Yeah, I definitely agree 100%. Because with the emergency fund, I mean, the money's there in case something bad happens, right? In case there's some sort of emergency. To me, if you're carrying a credit card balance that you're not able to pay off that month, to me that is an emergency. You should never be in that position. It's you're paying way too much, and you need to get rid of that ASAP. So instead of having money set aside while you're paying these ridiculous rates, go get rid of these ridiculous rates. And you know what? If something does happen while your emergency fund gets drawn down because you paid off your credit card debt, and let's say something does happen, okay, fine, then go and get a home equity line of credit, go get a secured loan, and obviously extremely watch your spending to make sure that because you shouldn't even be going into debt in the first place. But here we're talking kind of worst case scenarios where you just need that just as a temporary sort of short term solution. Then yeah, fine, go get that home equity line of credit, go get that secured loan. Don't be sitting there with credit card debt. There's no reason you should be paying 18% ever. In my opinion, like, do you have a car? Go talk to your bank, see if you can get a secured loan and you use your car, right? And then that way, if the bank feels better because if you stop paying them, they could repossess your car. You're not going to let them do that because now you're being responsible with your money and you're making sure that you are going to pay off that loan. So yeah, for sure, I feel pretty strongly about the subject because it just kills me to see someone carrying that amount. I mean, if it's going to give you a heart attack because you don't have an emergency fund and it's stressing you out and your blood pressure's through the roof because somehow you're wired in your brain that you need an emergency fund and you're gonna get like health issues because of that. Okay, maybe then it's fine, right? But then I'll go see a doctor and find out. That's a whole nother topic altogether. But anyways, that's all right. I'll drop that. But I kind of feel strongly about the subject because 18% is just brutal. There really is no reason you should be paying it. I don't know. Maybe there's some crazy extreme circumstances I haven't considered, but I can't think of a single one. Why you couldn't just get a secured loan and pay that off instead and use that instead.
And you mentioned something else there too, briefly about watching your spending. If you're having to weigh whether you're going to pay off your credit card or use a line of credit or the emergency fund, then yeah, you need to pretty much stop all your spending.
Right.
You can't sort of say, oh, I'm going to pay off my credit card with my line of credit, and that's all good. Now I'm going to keep spending.
Exactly.
you got to make sure you stop that cycle because you can't continually be using, say, a home equity line of credit to pay off your credit card, or else they're both just going to keep rising, and it's not going to help at all.
Exactly. Eventually, you get to the point where you've maxed out your line of credit, and because you actually haven't changed your spending habits, you are now still accumulating. You're still basically spending more than you should be, and now you're going to eventually say, well, now the bank won't lend me any more money against the line of credit because I've already used up everything they gave me, and now I have to use credit card debt. And so from all these sort of financial gurus out there that are sort of anti-debt, this is kind of their angle. This is kind of where they're coming from. Is that some people can easily fall into this really bad cycle of, oh, okay, well, I just took out a home equity line. I had a credit card debt, then I took out a home equity line of credit. I have, let's say, 70 grand that I can use. So now they start building up a line of credit without actually changing their spending habits. And then you fast forward a little bit, and now they've got $70,000 in debt. Plus, now they're also accumulating credit card debt on top of that because they can't, they've already used up their entire line of credit. And now they're basically in a catastrophic position as far as personal finance goes. So that's kind of the big, flag is that, like what Tom said, if you're going to use your home equity line of credit to pay off your credit card, okay, fine, but you better be paying off that home equity line of credit ASAP. You're not going out for all you can eat sushi that Saturday. You're taking that money and you're using it to pay off your home equity line of credit. So, all right, that's just, I get really, I get going about this subject because,
it's a good one. That one time that you have to decide how you're going to pay off your credit card, that should be the warning that you have to change your spending, not get into that sort of dangerous cycle.
Exactly. Yeah. It should never be a surprise. Oh, wow, this is a lot more than I thought it would be on this credit card. I don't know if I can pay it. That should never happen. If that is happening, that's a flag that something's wrong. Something is wrong. You've got to change your behavior somehow. All right. No, that's great. All right. So let's move on. So we talked about emergency funds. One other thing that I want to ask about is credit limit utilization. So one of the things I kind of ran across is some people will recommend that you should never use more than a certain percentage of your available credit limit. So one kind of source I found, they said 30%. You should never use more than 30% of how much you're allowed to use on your credit card. Can you speak to that a little bit? Is that significant? Should we be worrying about this? What are your thoughts?
Depends on what you're doing at the time. It's really just a bit of a credit score game. How much you're using, it's going to affect your credit score. But if you're not actively applying for credit or looking for a mortgage, if you're about to buy a house, then what your credit score is at that exact moment doesn't matter much. And if you're paying your card off in full every month, it also doesn't really matter much. Mm-hmm. So it just depends on how much you care about this one little factor of your credit score. If you were about to get a mortgage, then yeah, certainly I'd keep all the card balances really low. And by balances, I just mean what's in there at that exact time. You're still paying it off every month, but when the credit report's pulled, there's still a balance until it's paid off the next day, kind of thing. So there's a balance there, but it's completely just one small piece of the entire credit score calculation. And unless you're looking for some kind of new credit at the time, it's only going to matter so much. It's more important about that part about being able to pay it off every month, whether that's 30% of the balance or not.
Mm-hmm. Right, because when you pull your credit report, when let's say the mortgage company pulls it because you're about to buy a house, that when they pull that's just a snapshot in time. So at that particular time, you had this much credit card debt, right? And maybe you made some really big purchases that month, and that amount is a lot higher than it should be. and now that makes you look a bit more risky, right? Because now you're carrying quite a bit of credit card debt, and so definitely that makes sense, to try to keep that low when they're going to be pulling it, because you do want it sort of to be representative of how you are doing things day to day. If over the weekend you bought a new home theater for your home or something, exactly. and they just got all of a sudden your credit card thing spikes, then it might be something you're not giving them a fair representation of how you use your credit card on a day-to-day basis, and you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot a little bit there.
Yeah, when it came time to get a house, I was crazy about that. Like, I made sure all the limits were low. I had just a little bit left of a student loan, so I actually got them to extend the time so that I could keep paying it on purpose into the time I was getting a mortgage, because it actually extended my credit history to keep that on there, so I didn't want to pay it off. So I was playing every little game kind of thing to keep that credit score as high as it could be.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's important. I mean, it could be the difference between getting the loan or not, or getting a good rate or not, and that can be, that's one of those, if you talk about 80-20 rules, that can be one of those things that can make a huge difference, for sure. so definitely, getting approved and being responsible with it is pretty key for sure. So Tom, so I mean, that's I think all the kind of top questions that I had and that I thought the listeners might have of the Build Wealth Canada podcast. Let's dive into currently the top credit cards in Canada. Like I said in the intro, you researched this quite a bit. You know a lot of the advantages, disadvantages of the different cards. You have your blog where you write about this as well. Share with us some of the top cards and what we should consider.
Well, there's two cards I use pretty faithfully. First, there's the BMO World Elite MasterCard. It has 2% towards travel, but unlike Air Miles or Aeroplan, this is it's a straight 2%, which is a better value than Air Miles and Aeroplan. But it's also you can book it without any restrictions. It's basically same as cash. So I use Air Miles too, and I like collecting all the bonuses within the stores more so than just the base points. But you go to book a trip and it's 2 connections and not at the time of day you want. But meanwhile, you can see that there's a regular flight still available, but it's just not within the Air Miles system to book. With this BMO World Elite, you book through their site, but you're using basically just an open book any flight kind of system that no different than Expedia or something like that in a way. So you can get the flight you want without sort of the Air Miles restrictions or Aeroplan, and you're getting a better rate. That 2% is higher than what they normally calculate Air Miles to be. And on top of that, when you sign up for it, you get a $300 bonus. So technically that's 30,000 points, but it's $300 of travel credit right off the bat.
That's great.
And on top of that, this is the card I use when I mentioned the travel and the medical insurance. It's also got VIP lounge access. So it's quite good. I don't have the fee on me right now, but I think it's around $150, maybe $120.
Mm-hmm.
But and I find that totally worth it. The 2% alone pays for itself, and then all the perks on top of that. And just one, you're not paying the annual fee in the first year, plus you get that $300 credit in the first year too. So use it for at least a year, and you're certainly good. But
exactly.
So I use that card for a lot of my regular spending. But the other card that I'm a big fan of is the Scotiabank Momentum Visa Infinite. It's the one that I kind of alluded to earlier, where you get 4% on grocery and gas. You get 2% on recurring bill payments and at the drugstore. Now, obviously, those are good, but there's 1% remaining on that. So purchases that don't hit those two categories, you get 1%. In that case, I use my BMO card instead for the 2%.
Right.
So to have these two cards, if you're careful about where you're spending at, you'll get the best deal between the two of them. It also helps that one's a Visa and one's a MasterCard.
Right.
So you've always got the options there too. But so yeah, if I'm getting grocery or gas or a recurring bill or at the drugstore, I use that Scotiabank Momentum Visa. Anything else I put on the BMO World Elite, with one more exception. The the Scotiabank Momentum is it's got the extended warranty.
Oh,
So,
nice.
if I'm making a big enough purchase where I really care about having the extra year of extended warranty, which is pretty much any big purchase or electronics or anything, I'll use that, and I don't worry about the fact that I'm just getting 1% as opposed to 2%
Right.
because I know I'm getting that warranty with it. So it's all about knowing the details of the two cards in this case and how you can kind of work them at separate times.
Mhm.
But both of those do have the annual fees in the 120 to 150 range. They might both be 120. Sorry, I didn't have that. But
That's okay.
if you're looking for a high percent value with a card with no annual fee, though, if you go to the movies, the Scotiabank Scene Visa is my choice. Here and at some other places, they're starting to have the VIP theaters. But when you cash in the points for this Scotiabank Scene Visa, the points are the same no matter what kind of movie you go to. So you can cash in 1,000 points to go to a VIP over a regular theater. You can also cash it in to go to the fancy 3Ds and
Oh, nice.
AVX. And it's always 1,000 points no matter what. So if you're doing one of those more premium kind of theater rooms to watch the movie, you basically can get a 2% reward by using that card.
Mhm.
If you're going to just a regular theater just to watch a cheaper cost movie, then it starts to go down towards 1%. But even 1% is pretty good on a card that doesn't charge an annual fee. Of course, you got to really like going to the movies to do this. I believe they have a few catches where you can kind of use it on some other things, but basically it's for the theater. Otherwise, the best options without a fee other than that would be an Aeroplan or an Air Miles card. There's a load of options, but like I said, I've grown to not like the booking process with those, and the value of them just isn't quite as high as I had hoped it was for a few years. But
Right.
so I'm preferring these cards more where they're cash back or travel that's the same as cash back.
That's a great point, and I like how you brought up how you can sort of you have more flexibility in terms of choosing the flight. I know now we have a little one running around, and so if we're booking a family vacation and it's a red-eye flight with 3 connections or something. I mean, I'm not gonna put my daughter through that. That's just no, that's just not gonna happen. So
Yeah.
so I really so that's really good that you have this kind of level of flexibility with that one. That's great.
Yeah, I think you'd like a card like that more. I kind of grew tired of the Air Miles booking back when I had to book my wife and kids on Air Miles to go down to California,
Oh, okay.
and I was doing a business trip, so I used my business card separately, but they had to connect twice, and I was able to book a direct flight,
Uh-huh.
but instead I did not book the direct flight so that I could fly with them.
Oh, okay.
I had to book this multi-hop thing that was the best Air Miles would give.
Right.
But I still do a lot of Air Miles collecting with in-store bonuses, which are worth more than the base miles anyways. When you can go into a store and if you're spending $100, get 100 Air Miles, that's worth way more than the 5 Air Miles you would get spending $100 just
Right.
flat normal. So
Are you talking about those ones like the LCBO where you go there and if you get this wine, you get 20 air miles or whatever that is? Like, are those the kind of things you're
exactly,
talking
yeah,
about? Okay.
yeah. And if you're an Air Miles user, there's no shortage of emails and mail and stuff where they've got these. It's almost like a sale in a way where
Right.
they're trying to get you into the store and they'll give you all sorts of or buy this one grocery item, get 20 Air Miles or something like that. Like it, there's all sorts of options like that.
Yeah.
Those add up great for Air Miles, but the credit cards themselves and even the Air Miles just for the base spending points, I haven't found to be as good a deal as these other couple of cards I've mentioned.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I used to know a lady, and the way she chose what wine she purchases was based on the Air Miles promotion. So that's she wasn't a big she liked to buy wine but didn't have any sort of loyalty or preference really. So it was just all right, which one has the extra bonus Air Miles this week, and that's the one she would get. And you know what? She actually accumulated quite a bit of points. She told me all the trips she was able to take. Because if it's something you don't care that much about, if you're just I'm having people over, I want some wine. Just pick the one that get the bonus air miles.
I've done that with grocery purchases as
Oh
well,
yeah,
sure. It helps that often if an item's in the flyer for any of these kind of stores, it's probably on sale and has the air miles. So it's a nice
you can
sort
double
of
dip a
dual
little
benefit.
bit.
You don't have to decide. I certainly wouldn't pay more for an item just to get some air miles.
Right.
But if it's also on sale and you can get air miles, certainly.
Exactly. Yeah. No, that's great. And with so let's say we decided to, we looked into these cards you suggested, and we decided, you know what, yeah, we're gonna do it. Let's switch over and get these. Is there a particular process that you'd recommend in terms of canceling your credit card, and then kind of how to do it properly? I'm referring to the credit score impact and how things might show up. Like there's different sort of suggestions different people have when it comes to canceling your credit card.
Well, canceling has never been a big concern for me. The issue is if you've got a bunch of like recurring bills and everything set up for your credit card, and
right? Okay,
it's certainly a hassle.
Right,
you got to go to each one. What I've done in the past when I've started to switch cards is I've kept them both for a while, and
okay,
basically if some recurring payment came through, like maybe it's just an annual payment, if it comes through and you realize then that you haven't transferred it to the new card, I just kind of use that as my reminder and get them all transferred with the new card. When I'm totally done with the card, then I certainly cancel it. If there's an annual fee, cancel it right away.
Right.
Why pay a new annual fee when it comes up?
Exactly.
But in the past, I've only really switched from free cards to these annual fee ones I use now, and there's no rush to close them. Might as well make sure everything's transferred over properly.
Yeah.
Again, with the credit score, I don't get too much into now about playing the credit score game, but in the past I certainly have. You don't want too many cards open at a time, but at the same time, having maybe one extra credit card, it actually increases the amount of available credit you have, which is still part of that ratio. Like you were talking about 30% on one card, but really if you've got a card that you're really not using, it's still available credit, so that can actually help your score as long as you don't have too many of them. So it just depends on what stage you're at, if you how much you really care about that credit score right during that month, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's a great tip. Yeah, and I like how you said you just keep it. And you transition everything you can think of, everything you see to that new card, especially if it's a free card. And then you just keep it. You just keep that free card going for a while, and then eventually you should see no transactions at all month to month on that card. And then, except for those sort of annual charges, those automatic annual charges, you can pretty confidently then cancel that card because I've had this card for 3 months. There hasn't been a single charge on it. I think it's safe for me to just flat out cancel it now and not worry about. And then I know now that I've transferred everything over properly, so it looks good. And then maybe just check if you have any sort of annual bills, because those could, you might not see that one for another like 11 months or so. So that's So no, that's a really good strategy. I like that. It's, like I have some free cards right now, and I'm definitely going to consider moving over to some of the paid ones that you recommended. I'm going to crunch some numbers and look into it. So that's a great strategy to take for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, no, that's great. Well, that's great. Well, Tom, that's all that I had for my questions. Can you tell our listeners a bit more where they can learn more from you?
Yeah, here in Canada, I'm basically at CanadianFinanceblock.com. I do have a lot of websites, but CanadianFinanceblock.com is the main Canadian one. It's the one I've started out with. It's still my baby. Since we've been talking about credit cards, there is a compare credit card section in the nav bar there. You can see these cards I'm talking about and a few other categories as well. Also within Canada, I'm at balancejunkie.com, where it's not just personal finance. We talk about some more lifestyle stuff that still ultimately connects to money. And that's pretty much it within Canada. There's lots of other sites, but I won't bore you with those.
Sounds good. So I'll definitely put those in the show notes so everybody can check those out. And Tom, if you think of any more that you think would be valuable to the listeners, let me know. I can always add them to the show notes as well after the fact. Just so that everybody can kind of learn from you and sort of, you've done all the research for us in terms of the different cards, so we appreciate that. And for sure, I'll be checking those out. I always like the free option with the credit cards, but some of these benefits are pretty significant. So we're gonna have to do some analysis and see whether it's worthwhile sort of jump ship and actually, despite my frugal nature, to actually go and pay for a credit card, because you make a strong case for some of these for sure.
That was me for the longest time.
Yeah.
I had the exact same thought. I don't want to pay a fee. I don't want to pay a fee.
Yeah.
It's the same as bank fees and stuff.
Exactly.
You don't want to pay them.
Yeah.
But once I crunched the numbers and for the spending we were doing, like now that we have kids and stuff, the spending went up because you got to get them clothes and everything else.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
I found them to be a much better deal. I went years without a good credit card, and I probably would have been better off to do it sooner.
Yeah.
Another thing is credit cards change all the time too. These two are that I mentioned for the main cards I use. They're the top ones right now, but in Canada especially, there's been a lot of discontinuing of really good cards, and now they bring some other new ones in sometimes. So it constantly changes. You really do have to sort of research every time, and that's what I've been doing. Like I know BMO will be bringing in some new cards soon that look pretty interesting with air miles and with cashback. So the top cards could change real soon.
For sure, that's a great time. So maybe what we'll maybe do is in the future, if there are some new ones that have come out, I'll see if you want to maybe come on the show again and then sort of give us your recommendations, because for sure, all the sort of tips and hints you've been giving on this interview, that you can use them no matter when you listen to this podcast, whether it's today or a year from now. But obviously, like you said, the credit cards do change from time to time. So we'll see about I'll definitely send you an invite in the future to see if anything has changed, and if it has, I'll definitely invite you on the show again to see if you want to sort of share sort of the latest insights in terms of the latest credit card offerings, if there are any that you'd recommend now as opposed to the two you're using now. But yeah, we can play it by ear and see if that happens, and then for sure, you're definitely welcome back. As much
Love
as
to
you'd
be
like.
back on.
All right, great. All right, wonderful. So thanks, Tom. Have a great rest of the weekend, and I'll leave everything in the show notes, and so you can definitely check out Tom's blogs as well and all that great information he has on there too. All right, take care.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks for chatting with me.
All right, thanks, Tom. Bye. All right, I hope you enjoyed the interview with Tom, and you can get the list of the top credit cards in Canada, as well as links to some amazing personal finance sites that Tom runs over at buildwealthcanada.ca/16. So just the number 16. While you're there, join the Build Wealth Canada community by signing up for free to be a VIP member, and you'll be the first to know when new expert interviews like this one come out. I'll also send you new free tools and guides as they get released, and I'll let you know of all giveaways that I have running on the site, which tends to happen about once a week. And there you can win books, you can win other personal finance products and services from the experts that I have on the show. Also, as a bonus welcome gift for signing up, you'll get instant access to my guide on the top 5 personal finance and productivity tools that you can start using today for free to save you time and money. So definitely come on over to buildwealthcanada.ca and sign up to be a free VIP member. Lastly, if you're an iTunes user, I'd really appreciate it if you gave this podcast a rating. It helps a lot in getting great guests on this show like Tom. And if there is a guest or subject that you'd like covered, you can let me know there too, and I'll do my very best to cover that for you. All right, thank you in advance, and talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to the Build Wealth Canada podcast at www.buildwealthcanada.ca.